I love that I can unlock my phone with my face, and that Google can predict what I'm thinking, and that Amazon knows exactly what I need. It's great that I don't have to hail a cab or go to the grocery store. Actually, I hope I never have to drive again, or navigate, or use cash, or clean, or cook, or work, or learn. But what if all this technology was trying to kill me? The same technology that is making your life easier is being weaponized. That feature that unlocks your phone with your face, here it is attached to a self-learning machine gun. Its manufacturer, Kalashnikov, made this video to show the gun using object recognition software to identify targets. They say it gets more accurate the more you use it. That drone advertised to get awesome snowboarding shots? Here's one that doesn't require a pilot. This ad shows it with a high explosive warhead. It hangs out in the sky until it finds an enemy radar system, then crashes headfirst into it. Oh, and that driverless car you thought was so cool? Well, here it is in tank form at a Russian arms fair. It's called the T-14. Dmitry here says he's selling them to the Russian government.
Это модуль, в котором уже нету экипажа. Это полностью роботизированная система, которая работает в автоматическом режиме. Вчера был подписан твердый контракт с Министерством обороны на поставку 132 таких машин. Первые 9 должны поступить уже в этом году.
That contract is part of a trend that's changing the way wars are waged. Like all good stories, this one starts at a Russian arms fair. We're a few hours outside of Moscow. Everyone from government officials to gun enthusiasts have come here to see the latest weapons. It's a family affair. Buyers want to know how the 21st century technology boom can give their armies a strategic advantage. They want to know, can technology make war safer? But some fear giving weapons too much power because it brings us closer to machines that can go out and kill on their own. They say we might not be able to control weapons like these. Weapons loaded with artificial intelligence.
So artificial intelligence is the study of how to make machines behave intelligently, which means acting in a way that will achieve the objectives that they've been given. And recently I've become concerned about the use of AI to kill people.
Stuart Russell, he was an early pioneer in artificial intelligence. He's also been warning people about its potential danger for years.
So a killer robot is something that locates, selects, and attacks human targets.
Stuart isn't so worried about robots like this. We're still pretty far from the Terminator. But Stuart says we're not as far from something like this bee-sized drone. He imagined one and made a movie that he hopes will freak you out. In Stuart's movie, we see swarms of them armed with explosives set loose on their targets.
The main issue is you're creating a class of weapons of mass destruction, which can kill millions of people, just like a nuclear weapon. But in fact, it's much easier to build, much cheaper, much more scalable, in that you can use 1 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. Whereas with a nuclear weapon, it's sort of all or nothing. It doesn't destroy the city and the country that you're attacking. It just kills all the people you want to kill. All males between 12 and 60, or all males wearing a yarmulke in Israel.
The weapon Stuart's describing is terrifying if it works perfectly. With the current state of tech, many experts say it wouldn't. But that could be even scarier.
The way we think about AI is we build a machine and we put the objective into the machine and the machine pursues the objective. So you put in the objective of find a cure for cancer as quickly as possible. Sounds great, right? Okay, well, probably the fastest way to do that is to induce tumors in the entire human population and then try millions of different treatments simultaneously. Then that's the quickest way to to find a cure. That's not what you meant, but that's what you asked for. So we call this the King Midas problem. King Midas said, I want everything I touch to turn to gold, and he got his wish, and then his food turned to gold, and his drink turned to gold, and his family turned to gold, and died in misery and starvation. You know, this is a very old story. We are unable to correctly specify the objective.
Machines will always be limited by the minds of those who made them. We aren't perfect, and neither is our AI. Facial recognition software has had trouble with dark skin. Self-driving vehicles still need good weather and calm streets to work safely. We don't know how long it will take for researchers to create weapons with that kind of flexibility. But behind closed doors, defense labs are working on it, and they're not working alone.
Militaries don't have to invent AI. It's already being built. It's being driven by major tech companies out in the commercial sector.
Paul Shari here led a Department of Defense working group that helped establish DoD policies on AI and weapon systems for the US military.
The reality is all of the technology to put this together, to build weapons that can go out on their own, make their own decisions to kill human beings, exists today.
But it's one thing to assemble a weapon in a lab, and another to have it work in any environment. And war is messy.
Machines are not really at a point today where they're capable of flexibly adapting to novel situations. And that's a major vulnerability in war.
Governments around the world see potential advantages in these weapons. After all, human soldiers, they get tired, emotional, they miss targets. Humans get traumatized. Machines do not. They can react at machine speed. If a missile was coming at you, how quickly would you want to know? Autonomous weapons could save lives.
The same technology that will help self-driving cars avoid pedestrians could be used to target civilians or avoid them intentionally.
The problem is, we've gotten this wrong before.
To really understand the growing trends of automation in weapons that have been growing for decades, you have to go all the way back to the American Civil War, to the Gatling gun. How would I describe a Gatling gun? Do I have to describe it? Could you guys show a picture of it? Richard Gatling was looking at all of the horrors that were coming back from the Civil War, and he wanted to find a way to make war more humane, to reduce the number of people that are needed on the battlefield. Wouldn't that be amazing?
4 people operating Gatling's gun could fire the equivalent of 100 soldiers. Far less people would be needed on the battlefield. It was the precursor to the machine gun, and it was born with the intention to save lives. At least for the army that had the gun. Of course,
the reality was far, far different. Gatling's invention had the very opposite effect of what he intended, and then it magnified the killing and destruction on the battlefield by orders of magnitude.
Gatling was wrong. Automating weapons didn't save lives. And Dmitri here is saying something eerily familiar over 150 years later.
Она одна решает задачи, которые бы решали 30 человек.
And it wasn't just Gatling. Revolutions of warfare have typically not gone well.
Before we ever developed usable biological weapons, the biologist said, stop doing this.
All civilized countries today have given up chemical weapons as tools of warfare. But we see that they are still used by some rogue nations.
And then there are nuclear weapons. Even with multiple treaties in place to police their use, the threat of nuclear obliteration remains a global anxiety.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
early in the war in Afghanistan, I was part of a Ranger sniper team that was sent out to the Afghanistan-Pakistan border to watch infiltration routes for foreign fighters coming across the border. We drove all night and then began to hike up a steep, rocky mountain under cover of darkness. From our position on the ridgeline, we could see for dozens of miles in every direction. And by the time the sun came up, we looked down at this compound beneath us. We were basically in someone's backyard. We were certain that people would be coming to take a closer look at us. What I didn't anticipate was that they sent a little girl to scout out our position. She wasn't particularly sneaky, to be honest. She was reporting back our position, and probably how many of us there were. We watched her, she watched us, and then she left, and pretty soon after, the Taliban fighters came. The gunfight that ensued brought out the whole village, and we knew that many, many more fighters would be coming before long. So we had to leave that position as we were compromised. Later on the day, we talked about what would we do in a similar situation to that. Now, one of the things that never came up was the idea of shooting this little girl. But here's the thing. She was a valid enemy combatant, and killing her would have been lawful. So, if someone deployed an autonomous weapon, a robot that was designed to perfectly follow the laws of war, it would have killed this little girl in that situation. Now, I think that would have been wrong. Maybe not legally, but morally. But how would a robot know the difference between what's legal and what's right?
With so much at stake, you'd think a debate would be happening. Well, there is. It's just that technology moves at a different pace than diplomacy.
We will continue our discussion on agenda item 6A, characterization of the systems under consideration in order to promote a common understanding on concepts and characteristics relevant to the objectives and purposes of the convention.
One of the things I learned very quickly was that the official proceedings in the United Nations appear to be completely meaningless.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Support continued deliberations.
To stay within the normative framework.
Ces discussions sont complexes.
In interpretation,
the words between
of a multidisciplinary
down the rabbit hole of endless discussions on subjective notions.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are not in a position to make a declaration right now.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm fine. Except for the governments, you know. But their do-nothing attitude.
We'd like to hear about that. Jody Williams here won a Nobel Peace Prize for her work banning landmines. Now, she's part of the campaign to stop killer robots.
Academics attacked the campaign in the beginning years, you know, saying robotics and AI are inevitable. Maybe they are, but applying them to killing human beings on their own is not inevitable unless you do nothing, and we refuse to do nothing.
Today, the campaign to stop killer robots is staging a protest outside of the UN. The group is made up of activists, nonprofits, and civil society organizations. The campaign's goal? A ban on all weapons that can target and kill on their own. So far, 30 countries have joined them in supporting a ban, as well as 100 non-governmental organizations, the European Parliament, 21 Nobel laureates, and leading scientists like Stephen Hawking, Noam Chomsky, and Elon Musk, as well as Stuart Russell, and more than 4,500 other AI researchers.
Everyone, you can get up now.
I like dying.
Jody's here with Mary Wareham.
So this is the sixth time that governments have come together since 2014 to talk about what they call lethal autonomous weapon systems.
We're going to apologize in advance for the obtuse use of acronyms in this portion of the video.
We're not trying to prohibit the use of artificial intelligence. You know, it can be beneficial to humanity. We're pro-robots. We're just anti-killer robots, anti-fully autonomous weapons.
The CCW, the Forum of the Convention for Conventional Weapons, which actually has a name this long, and I can never remember it, operates by consensus. which means you either negotiate the lowest common denominator, which means doing pretty much nothing, or if the entire room of diplomats wants to move forward with a treaty, for example, and one state says no, then it goes nowhere. And that's really a dictatorship by one.
Once a bullet leaves a gun, the rifleman ceases to have control over that bullet. Autonomy is a way of extending human control beyond the time a munition is deployed.
That's the United States arguing that AI will save lives. And remember, without their support, any kind of regulation can't move forward.
Using algorithms and software to determine and engage targets reduces people to objects.
Estamos claros que un país en desarrollo no tiene la tecnología que estamos discutiendo aquí hoy. ¿Cómo nos vamos a defender?
In the U.S. perspective, there is nothing intrinsically valuable about manually operating a weapon system as opposed to operating it with an autonomous function.
The United States isn't alone. The countries working hardest to build autonomous weapons insist we can't regulate what doesn't exist yet. And at the same time, their militaries are developing these weapons right now.
Полагают, что САС в настоящее время нет, и их создание – это вопрос будущего.
中方认为 ，LOS 应被理解为全自主致命武器系统，目前尚不存在。
The line between a semi-autonomous weapon that has a human in control and a fully autonomous weapon could simply be a software patch.
Indeed, some may say it is similar to trying to discuss the internet in the 80s, 70s, 60s. At this stage,
It is not necessary or desirable at this time to define laws.
This so-called difficulty of definitions continues to be willful obfuscation.
The truth is, whether they exist or not just depends on how you define them. We don't have weapons with artificial general intelligence, or AI that's as smart as humans. But we do already have weapons that can use AI to search, select, and engage targets in specific situations. And the technology is only getting better.
So it could easily take another 10 years before they even agree on a definition of what an autonomous weapon is. And by that time, it'll be too late. I think for some countries, that's the point.
In the ongoing race between technology and diplomacy, technology is winning. Because in this race, the dual-use nature of technology means software being designed to make your life easier clearly has military applications.
The AI community, myself included, we were sort of asleep at the wheel for a long time. And we weren't really thinking about the ways that it could be misused.
Whether we like it or not, we've entered the age of the algorithm, and AI is changing our place on the battlefield. Is it possible the next generation of soldiers won't have to kill?
Look, it's an appealing idea that someday robots will just fight other robots and no one will get hurt. I don't think that's realistic.
Unfortunately, if it worked like that, we could just say, well, why don't we just play baseball and decide who wins, or tiddlywinks. No country is going to surrender until the costs that they've incurred are unbearable. So even if your robots are defeated, the next stage is that their robots will start killing your people.
Because the unfortunate reality is that wars will only end when people die.
This is Dabu7. A heads up here to what Russia is planning to do on Monday. We talked about this on the live stream. We cover a lot of stuff on the live streams. And for those that missed the live streams, you're missing a lot of key info that we're getting out there in real time, discussing events like this that are due to take place within a matter of days, or things that are already ongoing that people are not aware about. And in this instance, Russia's basically saying they're going to shut down all their internet in this massive drill because they passed this sovereign internet bill into law. It means that all communications operators, messengers, and email providers are going to participate in these tests, which is state-ran. This will allow them to be able to launch cyber attacks against other individuals at will. It also will allow for them to track down any dissidents at will and to remove them and silence them at will immediately. This is a massive test going down in Russia, showing their capabilities and what they're doing to the people here in terms of communication, and this is how they're clamping down. So if you're not aware of it, I'll leave a link here with more details you can read up on. I'll update if anything changes, so follow me on Twitter for the breaking news. Follow me on DLive for exclusive live streams you're only going to find over there. And if any of you guys want to join us for Knowledge Conference 2020, hit me up, dabu7@yahoo.com. While tickets are still available, this is March 21st, 2020. A bunch of like-minded individuals getting together, talking about things we can't discuss out here on these platforms. Hope to see some of you guys there. Much love.
Hi everyone. Recently spent some time in the city of Freiburg, a charming place in southwest Germany in the Black Forest. Now this area of Switzerland, southern Germany has historically had great thinkers and great professors and highly acclaimed universities. And I found out one of the world's top astrophysicists, Dr. Bergigina, was here. She is looked at as a world expert in how the universe works and in exoplanets. She does TED Talks and is well known in astrophysics circles.
Out there in the universe, and the Earth is just one of them. In this universe, we are really tiny. We put Earth in the center of the universe. Then we realized something wrong with it, so we put the Sun in the center of the universe. Again, it was a little mixed. We put Milky Way in the center of the universe. Not so bad. And we found out in the end that there is no center of the universe. Our planet is just a single blue dot among billions of other stars and billions of other planets. We use these plants as prototypes of photosynthetic organisms in the universe. And then we build models for alien lives, how they could look. And when we puzzled with this question, how aliens can look like, we actually find answers in the backyard. When we detect life on other planets, we will understand and learn that we are not alone, and we are not special.
I wanted to interview her, but how? I thought about it and I created an alias, David Howard from Oxford University Media Society, and created some online material supporting this front. After some well thought out, tricky and delicate emails, I got the appointment, and with the backstory that I was collecting information for young students at Oxford. As I waited in the lobby of this advanced university astrophysics centre, I could see that this was a business, with funding, hierarchy, secretaries, etc. Now before we get into the interview, for those new to the channel, know that gravity is just a theory, and my blog in 2015 explained the errors with gravity, and that it can be explained away by density and buoyancy. This blog had over 50,000 views, with not one person debunking it. Also worth knowing is that in 1931, a book called 100 Authors Against Einstein was published in German, and is in the description. This shows 100 scientists stating Einstein was leading science into pseudo-mysticism, abstraction, and speculation. It was crushed by mainstream science. Also know of the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias in which experts mistakenly assess their cognitive ability as greater than it is. It's related to the cognitive bias of illusory superiority, and also comes from the inability of people to recognize these experts' lack of ability. Obviously in this interview I couldn't say what I really wanted to early on, as I didn't want her to walk out. I wanted her to cover more subjects and get more answers. So take a seat and buckle up, and this gets more interesting as it continues, and presents a big key, one the truth community has needed for a while. Okay, let's play. Yeah.
Okay. And this doesn't go to unedited somewhere. You will edit this?
Yeah,
somehow?
sure. You can swear or go to the toilet or whatever, it's fine.
Okay.
Sure. Hello, Dr. Bergigina. Hello. If you could just spend 1 minute or 30 seconds explaining who you are and what you've done.
Oh, yeah. So I grown up in Russia. I fell in love with astronomy, first with physics and then with astronomy. And I realized that I want to understand the universe. I cannot live on Earth without knowing what above my head. I just felt like I need to know. I went to the university, studied astrophysics and mathematics, lots of programming, because when we were studying astronomy, we were told that astronomy is not just science by itself, it's very interdisciplinary. So to be an astronomer or astrophysicist, you need to know physics, mathematics, programming, and I must tell right now, lots of social skills.
Yeah, sure. Great. I've got a few questions for you, mainly going to go to teenagers. They're probably questions you don't hear often, or you probably heard when you were a lot younger. The first one I'm going to ask is, it is said that a spinning atmosphere has no border, there's no physical border between spinning atmosphere and the vacuum, and the atmosphere gets less pressured and becomes the vacuum of space. At what altitude would you say that the atmosphere stops spinning? So gravity, they say, pulls the air molecules to the Earth, but there's still some atmosphere molecules higher up.
Yes.
At what altitude would you say these atmospheric molecules stop spinning?
Well, this is, I would formulate this question that, yes, okay. So the atmosphere spinning and gravitation forces for molecules, these are two kind of different, let's say, forces, yeah? So the spinning allows molecules to escape, actually, at certain heights, yeah?
Okay.
So they can spin and escape at some point. They escape through collisions also. There's the additional forces, they collide. So
they collide with each other, or with parts
other.
of the vacuum?
With each other.
Okay.
So in order to understand when the atmosphere ends, kind of, yeah, not like having a sharp border, but what we call atmosphere below and no atmosphere above.
Yeah.
Actually, there's another term called exosphere.
Okay.
It's nothing to do with exoplanets.
Yeah.
It was terminology before exoplanets were discovered. It's called exosphere. So that part of the atmosphere which escapes. So below that part, the atmosphere, if it exists, it's called atmosphere.
And it's spinning.
And it's spinning. And colliding, molecules colliding. But above, they already, the density is so low that they can escape because they cannot collide. They don't collide anymore.
And what happens to those molecules of atmosphere that escape into the vacuum of outer space?
Oh, they go on a cosmic journey.
Okay, and they stop spinning with the Earth.
Yes, they don't belong to the Earth anymore.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a set altitude, distance, where that happens?
Yes, of course. It is defined by density of the atmosphere, the gravity of the planet. But for the Earth, I have to look up. If you want me to look up, I look up.
No, that's fine.
I don't know that number. I know that the density falls off exponentially.
Yeah.
So I actually cannot say. I mean, we tell that the space starts approximately, let's say, at 100 kilometers, above 130 kilometers, something like this, that you can go on the orbit. I mean, this spinning means like the body spinning around the Earth means that it's orbiting Earth, yeah?
Okay.
So even if we put a satellite at 200 kilometers, it's still orbiting the Earth, even though it is not in the atmosphere. So we put satellites at thousands of kilometers above, and they're still spinning around the Earth.
They're still in low Earth orbit in this model.
They're still on the orbit. They're still spinning around.
Would they still be colliding with molecules of the atmosphere?
Yes, they will. If there are, yeah.
Okay.
At that height, yes.
Okay, great.
So everything is spinning around. All the also space junk, what we call, yeah, all this.
Yeah, I've got a question on that later.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So everything is spinning, and my terminology it's orbiting. Astronomy terminology it's really orbiting the Earth at very large distances. Moon, 400,000 kilometers, is still orbiting the Earth.
And this would also collide with escaped atmospheric molecules from the Earth?
Yes, and it also collides with the escaped molecules, and not molecules in this case, but more like particles and atoms from the sun.
Okay.
Which is called solar wind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's like hard to, I mean, the atmosphere definition is that, okay, when the molecules can escape, the atmosphere ends. You have to look up this number, for the Earth, I don't know.
But it's kind of arbitrary and it's kind of hazy.
Yeah, exactly, it's just escaping. But this escape, it's still they can go on an orbit.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that escape means that they cannot fall on Earth anymore, because the molecules go like this, like they collide and they go up and down all the time. Yeah, so it's like turbulence, what we call.
And the reason in mainstream astrophysics that the vacuum doesn't suck out the gas is because gravity is holding the gas to the Earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everywhere else in science, when there's a vacuum and gas, it equilibrates.
Yes. If you just take without gravity, yes, then they start to mix. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Our survey said.
On to the next question. It is written in astrophysics that the rotation of the Earth is due to, we can't feel it because of constant velocity. Now, one astrophysics guy I met, he said there are two constant speeds. Let me show you this.
Yes.
A bit like this fairground ride.
Yes.
And some people I know looked at some rotation physics, and they said if you're on the edge of this, you would be experiencing acceleration and deceleration. It's only the middle point that would experience, like the wizard in the middle. The wizard would be constant velocity, but if you're on the edge, you get acceleration and deceleration because of the two constant speeds. How would you answer that?
You mean why this happens? Or
well, surely with the rotation of the Earth,
and
because it's going around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour,
yeah,
we'd be experiencing deceleration and acceleration. So think of this fairground ride. Pick one human being. So pretend that's the Earth.
So you want to include all the velocities involved, also Earth
just two.
rotation.
The Earth rotation on its axis, 1,000 miles an hour, and 66,000 miles an hour around the sun. If you're on the edge of this sphere, like a human being, you would surely be experiencing deceleration and acceleration.
Exactly.
How does astrophysics at your level explain that?
Well, it's gravitational forces. So one gravitational force you have towards the Earth center. So this is gravity of Earth, and that what holds Earth together. And when it rotates, you experience this acceleration on the edge of the Earth and the gravity towards the Earth. But when the Earth goes around the Sun, there is gravitational force towards the center of the Sun. So two gravitational forces produce this effect of acceleration and deceleration combination.
Bingo! Yahtzee! Is that your final answer? Our survey says...
But wouldn't that mean we're not at a constant velocity, so humans should feel the rotation of the Earth?
That is interesting.
It's an interesting one. The astrophysicist I met, he did a model showing that it should show acceleration and deceleration. So I could actually show you a video where this goes around the sun, and it shows, and even you can go onto the International Space Station, which is orbiting the Earth, and this also should be showing acceleration and deceleration due to the two constant motions, just like the fairground ride.
Right. Well,
probably need some homework.
Yeah, I need some thinking.
But it's an interesting one, yeah?
It is an interesting question, yes. We usually think, that the pull, we have to compare this acceleration to the gravitational pull.
Okay.
That I would start with. Because velocity is one thing, but acceleration is the other thing. So we have to compare acceleration due to rotation to the acceleration due to gravity.
Yeah.
And it's very possible that gravitational acceleration is larger. That's why we just don't feel this side.
I think we would need three different answers. One for the Earth, one for the International Space Station, and then one, imagine an astronaut outside the International Space Station. How would he be staying with the space station? Because they're all doing this they're all acting under these two constant forces, two constant motions.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is a question I can't get answered. It's a very interesting one.
Yeah, but in this case, space station and the astronaut in space, they are like probe, we call it probe particles, free particles to probe the gravitational field, yeah? So they will orbit the Earth because of the gravitational pull of Earth, but together with Earth, they will move around the Sun. So, and that is because the gravitational acceleration of the Earth to the Sun is much larger than gravitational acceleration of any of us to the Earth.
So they just don't notice it.
Yeah, they don't notice this.
Okay.
So that is, I think this, of course, the rotation around the sun, orbiting around the sun, it's a huge velocity, but we're so pulled to the Earth that this Earth to the sun is somewhere.
Our survey said.
This is a quick question a friend wanted me to put in. He said, with the lunar lander, there's one rocket. How would that land with one rocket when the spacecraft is asymmetric? Like, we haven't seen on Earth a craft landing. I mean, the SpaceX one, they say lands, but that's very symmetrical. So it's a very asymmetric lunar lander. Surely we'd have seen that being tested on Earth, or we'd see things now.
It's jumping, yes. Did you see the movie of First Man, it's called? How he practiced, I mean, in the movie, he practiced landing on this. Okay. And it was jumping like hell, like this. And he said, I will practice until I make it, you know? So it's probably some also human skill involved in there.
Maybe a bit like when they did a manual docking with the ISS.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, this Apollo 11, it's all manual. If you go to Smithsonian, it's shocking. They use the calculator smaller than we use in our...
4 kilobytes memory.
Smaller than we have in our telephones right now. It's all manual.
Yeah, and they had when the lunar lander took off, they filmed it. You know that piece of footage? The lunar lander takes off from the moon and they created a film. It was like a 10-second film of it taking off. And my friend asks, who filmed it and who... How did that?
They left probably cameras there, that's fine.
And then went back to get them?
No. They get through radio, pictures through radio. Yeah.
So in the 1960s, they sent videos, digital videos, back across space.
Well, it's radio. So let's say they can take pictures.
But they only had a 4K memory lunar lander, and now you're saying they had like a 20 megabyte ability to capture video. This is a strange one.
Come on, we have pictures from the missions.
But as scientists, we can't take pictures as proof, can we?
I don't know what was the technology, but in 1960s, this is 69, okay? So there were already missions to Venus, Mars, also lunar orbiters existed. They all sent pictures. Pictures from the back of the side of the moon were sent before.
I, as an independent journalist, I can't use pictures as evidence, because we can watch a film, a science fiction film, and they've got great pictures of space.
No,
you know?
no, come on. Pictures is data. Pictures is data. So, of course, you can fake pictures. In our time, 21st century is unique. We fake everything. So, I don't think in 20th... Well, of course, you can fake also all the times, or in 15th centuries as well. But if somebody... I mean, this is unethical, again, yeah? So, I mean, first approach should be like, okay, you have picture, this is data. I look at it.
Yeah.
And if I have questions, I will ask, how did you get this data? Yeah. And the person who claims that this is a data, he has to provide all the materials.
That's true.
Prove that this is real data.
That's true. And with the moon mission, they said 2 years ago they've lost all the data. You remember that? They said they've lost all the data. Because some people went to say, oh, can we study the data? Because they had some questions, like I have. And they said, oh, we've lost it all. Can't find it.
This is also, you know, this is another force called government, okay?
Things get a little shady sometimes.
Yes. Sometimes governments want to hide things, we know this. And they can say we lost it instead of sharing them, for instance. I don't know. I looked at pictures of the lunar orbiter, for instance, of the surface of the moon, and there is clearly landing sites there. You can tell me that, oh, that picture was faked, and that's why when you look at the data, it's the landing site is there. You can tell it's possible, yeah, that somebody faked that. But it's also, then, of course, in this case, I can say, all right, some data faked, what can we trust here in this universe?
You would say it's healthy to trust photos and images from bodies like NASA?
Well, I mean, what can we trust then? You know, I don't know. I mean, if we question everything,
then we end up crazy, maybe. Yeah,
we should hold on something, you know.
Yeah.
And NASA, I think, safeguard its reputation. I would say, trying very hard. And all of us, all scientists do that. But when the government is involved, I don't know what happens. So that I can imagine that there are forces saying like, we don't want you to share this data, sure. And then the scientists are constrained, yeah. And then you can call it unethical from our outsider point of view. But for those people who work there, this is maybe a threat of life, you know.
Sure.
And so it's a controversial thing.
Yeah, because NASA is a government agency.
Yes, exactly. So yeah. I don't know what they hide. I cannot prove or disprove because I'm an outsider.
Sure. Two questions about the space station. I think a year ago they had some cracked glass on the space station due to space debris. This was put all over the internet and mainstream media, but yet they still did spacewalks a week later. Would you think that's a bit dangerous to do if you're getting the screen cracked by space debris? Surely if you're an astronaut, you'd be like, hey, I'm not going out there next week because my spacesuit, I'm going to die. There's a good chance of dying.
Well, this space debris is being tracked. Not everything is known, but there are telescopes on the ground which tracking this little specks in the space and calculating the orbits. There are catalogs of this space debris, and they are like not homogeneously distributed all over. There are like packs of them, like in that, remember the movie Gravity again, like they say, oh, it's coming, you know, like this is space debris from particular mission, yeah. And it's true that they are distributed unevenly. So there are some dangerous times and there are not so dangerous.
So you think they're just brave astronauts?
God, it's another force. You have to do things, you know, it's your job. And of course, I'm sure the government takes all possible care that people are not damaged there. But if it's a job, you just do your job. Yeah. You given the order, you do your job. You know, I think this is
military style. Yeah. Going on to something a bit interesting here. This is recognized all around the world as the spherical trigonometry of the curvature of the Earth, yeah? So, do you prefer kilometers or miles?
I prefer kilometers.
Okay. So, if we were to look, let's try and make this brighter. If we were to look 50 kilometers, there should be 195 meters below the curvature. It's 195 meters drop. Does that make sense? So if I walked in a straight line 50 kilometers, I would have dropped.
Okay, because of the curvature.
Because of the curvature of the Earth. This is, how much is that? 195 meters.
Okay.
Yeah? So for 20 kilometers, there will be 31 meters drop. Okay. This has been verified through universities and astrophysicists. What if I told you I knew some people who, over 4 years, have done about 50 to 100 experiments, and they can see lighthouses and they've done laser tests over between 30 and 60 miles. So like a laser hits a mirror across a long lake, like Lake Constance, near Constance, near here, and seeing things like Chicago skyline from across Lake Michigan from 50 miles away. And they factored in the height of the person and all the maths, and that these people actually cannot find the Earth's curvature. For instance,
I didn't understand what they say.
For instance, I have a video here. I just want to show you some tests. So this guy has done some tests. Where are they going to be further on? And there's many using the P900 camera. Have you heard of this camera? It's 86 times zoom, and it's only come out recently. These people have done tests over 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, and they can see torches, mirrors, lasers, where they've done the maths and it should be 10 meters below the curve or 20 meters below the curve. And this is getting really strange really quickly. He's saying here, he's done the maths, I verified some of it, so this should be 21 feet below the curvature. This is only over 7.53 miles, so this is 10 kilometers, let's say. He's factored in the camera height, and there are curvature calculation tools, and he's seeing lasers and mirrors. And there are people I know, especially in America, who are doing loads of these tests, and they can't find this curvature. What would you say to these people?
They have to take into account the height at which
They
they
are.
stay.
They are.
And the height of the mirrors.
They are. Even if it's 50 centimeters, they're putting that into their calculations.
How do they measure the height of their own height on the Earth? They have to know it very precisely. If they want to measure 20 feet.
Sure. What they do, they're actually generous. So say they set up a tripod at 1 meter. They actually put into the calculations 2 meters.
No, I mean height, like relative height of you because Earth is not really round. Yeah, it has bumps. That's what I mean. How do you take bumps into account?
There's an oil rig one. This one's quite far. This is like 20 kilometers.
Yeah, you have to take the profile of the Earth.
So you're saying saying they're just finding a. So this is really interesting. This is 3 oil rigs, and the furthest one is 26 miles away. You shouldn't be able to see it. I mean, we can say the Earth is flat in some places and more curved in others, but these guys have done so many tests. This is 26 miles away, and the horizon's behind it. Now, they say in mainstream physics, the horizon's 12 miles away. With this new camera, the P900, they're seeing things 20, 30, 40 miles away. And this is getting pretty crazy.
I don't know. This is, again, like the facts you bring, I don't know what these people are doing, first of all.
They're testing stuff with their eyes because they don't trust the governments, these people.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I don't want even to talk about this, I'm sorry.
Why don't you want to talk about it?
This goes crazy.
But this is science, right? You're a scientist.
No,
you're a
I
scientist.
don't accept this.
How can you not accept it? It's right in front of you. The oil rig's 21 miles away.
No, I don't. I want to have.
This is a test. It's a scientific test.
Who did this? Can I trust those people who published this picture?
I'm verifying these people. I know these people.
Well, okay, but this doesn't tell me anything.
Okay, how about you and I go to the lake one day, and we take a P900 camera, and I'll show you something really, really fucking crazy.
Well, again, there are forces in the universe, yeah? So there is atmosphere, you have to take refraction into account, you have to take geographical profile of the surface. It's not that, oh, I take a camera. You know, I have these people visiting me sometimes.
But they're not doing it, but they're doing lasers as well. You know there's lasers that cost $2,000?
I know.
And there are people who've done 25 miles, 30 kilometers tests.
I can see mountains 40 kilometers
away. Yeah, but they're high up.
Why do you claim that this is not high up?
Come on, you're smarter than this. Say you have a lake, 30 miles, water's, yeah? And you have a person here firing a laser, and you have a person here with a mirror. And
why do you claim it's on the same...
there should be curvature. With the official size of the Earth, there should be detectable curvature of about 30 meters in some cases, maybe more. And people can't find it.
There are other things to be counted. Not only just claiming, oh, there's no curvature. You have to count shape of this thing where the water is, how it feels, what's the gravity there. What is the
gravity there will be the same as the gravity everywhere.
Refraction of the atmosphere.
Okay, there's a test where a guy went back every day and did the same test because of different atmosphere, different atmospheric haze.
This refraction is on average always the same.
But refraction can't make a human being jump up 30 meters.
You can see light of the sun from below of horizon.
Sure. This is like refraction, I understand this, but what they did in one test, he proved that it's not refraction because there was a tree above the person here, and you could see the tree and everything. He said, well, where does the refraction start and stop? You know, like a mirage.
Okay, so for me, it's not science if somebody says it.
But there's tests.
We have, in science, we have a system. We don't believe everything what people say or what they measure. They are publishing results in scientific papers. There is always peer review to that. And if there are questions to the results, they have to provide all the data, all the measurements. And even if it's published, it's not, if it's just somebody published this
Yeah.
and somebody repeats it and cannot reproduce it.
This has been repeated. I could show you 50 different people.
In which journal is published?
I could tell you for a fact that mainstream science is really not happy with these people and is shutting them down. And I could tell you another thing for a fact, that governments and government websites
So what
are
are
also not
you?
happy.
What are you claiming?
I'm just not claiming anything. I'm here to ask questions.
No,
I don't have
what
any
are you
conclusions.
claiming? That these results prove that Earth is not curved.
I'm not saying that. I'm not making any claims, and I don't have any labels. What I'm saying to you is, this is strange. What do you think?
I think these measurements have to be verified by scientists. It's like claiming
But everyone's a scientist.
UFO. No, not
I disagree.
everyone. We are trained. We are trained as scientists. We are trained with the analytical skills and scientific judgment. Even if we don't know something for sure, we can judge based on the other lots of knowledge of scientific facts.
Okay.
And not everyone can do measurement and say, look, I measured this. How do you prove it? I had one crazy person visiting me, taking pictures of dark places with the flash. And she was claiming there are these little dust particles which she sees on the flash picture. These are UFOs.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay,
but this is the fact.
Sure.
She took a picture of the dust particles, scattered light.
Sure.
But her interpretation was, these are UFOs.
But if 100 different people have done this test with this new camera, 86 times zoom, at lakes, all around the world, peer-to-peer, there's a place peer-to-peer in England, and they're getting the same results of missing curvature, that's scientific method, observable, repeatable, measurable. That's the scientific method. And you replying the word refraction isn't scientific method.
It is. Refraction?
Well, where's your results that show refraction explains these tests away?
I can see sunlight from the behind of the horizon when the sun is down.
That doesn't mean that humans can jump up 30 meters.
What do you mean jump?
Okay, so say this human and this tree should be 30 meters below the curvature. You can't use the word refraction for them jumping up 30 meters, the tree and the person.
Why do you claim that your calculations are right? I'm not verifying right now.
I'm pretty smart. And I verified.
I have to trust you. I see you first time.
But that's what I say to you. I could send you some data for you to do some.
Thank you.
But that doesn't make you a scientist.
No. It means that I don't want to do this particular project because I'm interested in many other projects.
But you're coming to conclusions without doing tests. That's not very scientific.
I'm not making a conclusion. Any.
But as an astrophysicist, surely you'd want to look at something like that.
No.
Why not?
I'm not interested.
Why would that be?
Because I'm busy with much bigger questions than that.
And you think this is nonsense?
I think it's nonsense.
The detectable curvature.
Yes.
Our survey said.
What would be your first reason for this being nonsense?
Because it's proven curve is round.
Could you show me the scientific methods experiment that did that?
Oh yes, it's done in 2000 years ago.
Which test was this? Is this the sticks in the ground one?
Sticks in ground. Ships on the horizon.
I could show you with this camera ships, they go over the curvature. I could show you them coming back.
Okay.
Reappearing.
So it works?
Huh?
So it works in your case?
What I'm saying is the human eye has a vanishing point in these tests. I'm not making any claims. I'm just trying to find things out. The human eye has a vanishing point. That's not curvature, it's the human eye's vanishing point. Ships go beyond the vanishing point and people say it's the curvature. I can prove to you today if you want, with this P900 camera, the ship comes back.
I didn't understand that.
Okay.
It's okay, fine. I'm not going to talk to people who claim that Earth is flat.
I'm trying to find answers to some very interesting
things.
It's
just enough for me. It's enough of nonsense. That woman was coming to me 3 times and always.
But you can't project her onto me. I'm a completely different person.
I am sorry. Do you say this picture is the data? She claimed exactly the same.
No, but this isn't picture. This is video. This is video.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So if I showed you 1,000 videos...
It's interpretation.
Okay, if I showed you 1,000 videos of PhD scientists doing this, these aren't bunch of idiots, these are scientists, a lot of them are PhD scientists. If I sent you 1,000 videos from PhD scientists doing curvature tests, you would still say it's nonsense.
PhD science in what?
Many different, I mean, some are civil engineers, some are all sorts of different things. Some are astronomers.
Well, let them publish this. I want to read that paper.
But when they publish it, do you know what happens? It gets shut down.
Yeah, I want to read that paper.
No, the paper's not allowed to get out there. You even put a video on YouTube, they turn it off.
I'm not talking about this. This goes into a direction I don't want to talk about.
But this is science.
No.
Because it's measurable, repeatable, observable.
It's not science.
Why would you say that? Why would you say this isn't science when people are doing tests and capturing data?
Because of that woman I told you. There are pictures, these are data.
But as a scientist, you should say that was her and this is something different.
No.
You can't project an old issue onto a new issue.
No, I give you example. By exclusion. Try exclude that picture was, you claim that every picture is a science. It's data, I agree. This is data, somebody recorded it.
Yeah.
What comes after data is the analysis of the data.
And that's what's happening in these videos.
How the analysis is done, and after the analysis there is interpretation of that analysis.
I can show you hours of this.
And
this is the data, the curvature model that every university in the world goes with.
Fine.
And this has big problems.
Make these measurements on the moon. Make these measurements on the moon. Make these measurements on the moon.
How would we get to the moon? They said they lost the data recently.
And you will, go to the moon yourself. Go to the moon yourself.
But we can't go to the moon.
Yeah, so what can I do?
But NASA said that last year they can't go to the moon because they lost all the data.
Well, sorry. We live on the planet with the water and the atmosphere and gravity and uneven shape. And if somebody measures something which doesn't fit exactly circle of the Earth, I'm sorry for this person, because this is idealistic model.
You think they just got lucky and found a flat area?
I don't know what, it's probably just whatever. It's randomness. They have to make, in order to prove that Earth is flat, they have to take million measurements at million places.
I would say there's about 500 measurements of lack of curvature that are very well done with calculations.
It's your judgment.
No, it's not my judgment. It's not my judgment. They exist. These tests exist.
They are claims.
No, they're tests.
Claims.
They're actually tests.
These are claims. If they are not verified, these are just claims.
But you're saying they have to be verified by the scientific community?
Yes.
What if the scientific community at a high level is just shutting this information down?
Well, I can tell you. You can go and collect leaves, for instance, yeah, because it's interesting. It's biology. Yeah? You collect leaves, it's biology. You come to the biologist and you say, look, this leaf is a little different than this one. How would you explain this? And he says, well, it's just natural variations. I'm not interested in this. And you say, oh, you are a biologist and you're not interested in this interesting thing. Why this leaf is different from that? It's biology, it's science, and you're not interested.
These aren't like different leaves. These are the same, different tests of the same thing coming with the same results. That's highly scientific.
I should have asked your credentials before I talked to you. I'm sorry.
Here she demanded that I stop the recording, as she was super flustered and angry. Now, before I tell you what happened, just remember what she said earlier in the interview.
This is, for me, as a scientist, we're always like, okay, there's a puzzle, there's observation, which is true, data, and there's a model which cannot confirm the data. Then I'm sorry, the model is wrong. So
you would say direct experience is the king.
Yes.
So she is a contradictory mess of a scientist. And this person is one of the world's top astrophysicists. It's laughable. And regarding the oil rig, I mean, in the words of Nathan Oakley, if you're a fundamentalist religious zealot, then that's not an oil rig at 26 miles. That would be a slightly looming non-standard refraction, high in a holographic projection of an oil rig from behind the reified edge of a sphere based on an R value, turning the oil rig which seems to be there into an oil rig which is not actually there. That's what you have to assert if you are Professor Dr. Bergigina, who is paid well to mind control young humans into thinking the same. So she then demanded that I delete the interview. so I secretly uploaded it to the cloud as I kept her talking and calmed her down. She then told me I would need written permission to publish this anywhere. I'm afraid that's not really wakey policy, as there's a bigger picture than her theoretical pseudoscience supported on the foundations of fragile egoistic arrogance. I could say to her that anyone mind-controlling mass groups of humans knowingly or unknowingly needs written permission from wakey, so it works both ways. I also do want to share my credentials. 50 meters swimming. That's it. As I left school at 15 because my soul knew it was all a load of garbage. And in that interview I think I'm the one that stayed rational and she's the one that got emotional and flustered and defensive. You see, it's all about the elite building and paying for gatekeeper temples and getting young people to pay to worship at them. It's a clever trick. The questions she couldn't answer are all answered in my Luminaries Mysterium documentary, where just 1 hour after I uploaded it, YouTube really shut me down and hid me from the search algorithms and removed subscribers without them knowing. My plan didn't end here though. I created double-sided flyers that are downloadable in the description and a linked Instagram account full of memes, and then bombed the city, mainly student cafes. This whole method of undercover interviews and flyers is simple for anyone to copy and paste into other cities. I've shown you how easy it is. I've shown you that the top astrophysicists are frauds. You have the tools, as they simply have no scientific method proofs. It makes it fun. The second undercover interview I did in Freiburg was on a different subject and will be online in a few weeks' time. I also have some new t-shirt designs I'll share in a moment, and as you know, I do professional true cosmology, astrology, luminology with over 250 happy clients now, and I also give advice regarding the understanding and investment into crypto assets. Oh, and whoever it is who keeps getting the secret police to stop me in different countries and point guns at me for no reason before strangely letting me off, just come and have a chat and a cup of tea, mate. It comes across like you've watched too many 80s B movies and think you're all Miami Vice or something. Just need to grow up.